Welcome to Deep Thought. Many are latent change agents. And when I say latent change agents, I mean that in the sense of they have the ability within them to make a major change in the lives of many. Because yesterday I talked about being a change agent, somebody going out here to change things for people. And indeed, I didn't get into when I first really started using that term. Because, and this would be more personal orientated. When I started, the first time I heard it, it was back in the late 1990s. And it was when I was trying to get my sister, who at the time we would say she was mentally retarded at the time, but with what we know now, she was just merely on the autism spectrum. Indeed, her IQ had been tested by a professional psychologist around that time, and he said on some things her IQ was higher than his. This is a professional psychologist said this. But she was on the spectrum. But, we didn't know that then. We have more knowledge about the spectrum now than we do now. But she wasn't mentally retarded. She was just on the spectrum. But anyway, I was working to get her into this program. And I remember meeting me and her. I went to meet with this woman. She was in charge of it. Was it was a program that focused on using arts with people who, children and adults who were, either had Down syndrome, they were on the spectrum, they were considered mentally retarded. And I remember meeting with her, and this was a big program. I think it's, Art and Drama Therapy Institute in the D.C. area. And I remember meeting with the director of the program, and it was a 2-year waiting list for it. But somehow I moved the director to move my sister through there. My sister was able to get in that program, skip over a 2-year waiting list and get in there within a couple of months. And I never forget what the director said. She looked at me and said, "You're a change agent," because of what I was doing and everything. And that's when I really started thinking about it. So, that's understanding that's what being a change agent is. That's when I first heard about it. But now I'm talking about latent change agents. And now this is with another family member, which is why I actually came up with this subject. I thought about my mother. Now, I mentioned before, my mother, as a black woman, had been a paid model in the 1950s. She had been a model. But she didn't go any further. Got married and everything. And there was some other circumstances I won't get into. She wasn't able to do that, really take it further, because I remember talking with my grandmother and said my mother, both of them had the idea of starting a modeling school for young black girls. Both of them had that idea. And I thought about that. That's why I kind of thought about the change agent thing. Think about it. A modeling school for black girls during the era of segregation still, because the civil rights movement it had started, but it hadn't really reached its native. And I thought about, how many lives would that have changed if she was able to do that? Even not necessarily like create like supermodels or models, but just the self-esteem of somebody just going through there, how they would teach them. Because I remember when I was young, my mother had taught me and my sister how to basically walk. Like my sister, she could actually walk better than a model. She could pivot in everything. My mother had taught us that. And people have commented on my walk, but, my mother was able to say, hey, keep your shoulders up and all of that. How many, if she had been able to follow through on that, what she would have done? How many lives would have been affected by that? How many the self-esteem of women might have been raised by that? Those women who could have married men, they feeling good. How many marriages might have been saved by that? And then the whole modeling industry might have changed then. What if she had the school and been able to teach some women and, some young black girls, and they might have affected the modeling industry sooner? Because even to this day, there's still some racial issues there. What if it had affected that sooner? What kind of changes, what kind of jobs would have been created? How many younger black girls or even younger white girls, Hispanic girls, Asian girls might have been affected by someone who would have went through the program my mother and grandmother had a dream of creating? And I always thought about that. Of course, they didn't create that, but I always thought about that. Now, my mother had passed a few months ago. She had passed back in 2019. Just excuse me for a second. Time is weird with me. I have to do a whole other thing. Something that happened 5 years ago in my mind happened yesterday. So anyway, how many people might have been affected by that? And let's take it further. Now, I used the example of my mother, but how many people out here have you met who had a great idea for a business, a movement, but they didn't bring it to the fore? I mean, on a great thing. It could have been anything. Or it could have just been living a certain way and being a representative of something. I know someone who was told by someone in that more, I'll say metaphysical field, that if they had taken their lives in a certain way, they would affect the lives of 10,000. It was a young lady, 10,000 other young women. She was told by this metaphysical reader, another woman, she was like, if you raise yourself up, 10,000, you will raise, it would be like the Enterprise. 10,000 women will rise up with you. But if you fall to the ground, you will be like the Titanic and you will bring 10,000 women, because you didn't rise up, won't rise up. That's powerful. And there's a lot of people, a lot of men and women out there that they have that power within them. If they follow through on their dream, regardless of what it is, that they would have helped somebody else. You know, I'll use myself for an example. Following through on my dream of being a writer has affected many people. And I'm not saying this as to be braggadocious or anything, but many have come back to me and said, hey, you know, you said what I needed to hear in your book, or you helped me. That's very important. That's very important. But what if I said, you know what, I'm just going to go and get this 9-to-5 job, or really, trust me, it could have been like a 70-hour-a-week job. I made 6 figures easily without doing any writing. I could have been making 6 figures now. Well, I am now, but I could have been making 6 figures working in the government or something. Yeah, all they had to do was just stay there and just keep advancing right now. And it would have been a great living, everything like that. But how many people, it might have affected some people, but how many more people were affected globally because I said, no, you know what, I like to write. How many people, what if I said I didn't want to write? Y'all wouldn't be listening to this now. Y'all would not be listening to this now. And how many lives that would have affected if I didn't do YouTube podcasts or in videos. Like I say, I'm not being braggadocious, but I've met a lot of people who reached out to me and said, hey, Rom, I started my stuff, or I got into this business. What if I had just said, you know what, I'm just going to be late and just do my thing? Probably wouldn't have been happy, but I'm going to get into that in the next one. But, you know, it's like, and I'm talking about what I did, but every single person got something that they're supposed to do. There's a lot of latents. I've met so many people, they got some ideas. They got some ideas what they want to do, but they're not doing it. And they got it within them. There's so many latent change agents. And I'm just going to say the world would be a better place if we could wake them up. I want y'all to think about that. And I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace and blessings.